Rain traced narrow silver threads down the arched windows of the Cotswolds Observatory, where the night sky blinked through clouds in cold indifference. Inside, Dr. Mira Callen sat motionless, her eyes fixed on the seismic waveforms crawling across her dual monitors. To an outsider, they would look like random noise, but Mira had been listening long enough to know when silence had a shape. She leaned forward, frowning. There it was again. A low-frequency anomaly. Too regular to be tectonic, too deep to be man-made. She clicked isolate, and the computer filtered the spike into a singular rhythmic pulse. 6 beats, a pause, then 4, then 6 again. Like it was counting. She exhaled sharply and leaned back in her chair, brushing a loose strand of hair behind her ear. The room hummed with quiet machines and the soft tick of the rain. Somewhere, outside, the hills slept under a veil of fog and damp soil. She glanced at the corner of her screen. Location: Southern Indian Ocean Trench. Depth: 12.44. Commander Mira's heart started to thud, not from fear, but recognition. Her sister Lila had once talked about underwater harmonics in this region before her tragic accident during a deep-sea dive 4 years ago. This was the same trench. Her hands hovered over the keyboard, hesitating. Something in her wanted to shut the program down, pretend she hadn't seen it. She wasn't ready to open that door again. But she did. She copied the audio snippet and applied a harmonic spectrum filter. What emerged was not just a beat, it was a pattern of tones. Frequencies far below human hearing range, mathematically spaced. Like music, but impossibly old. And then, her lights flickered. The speakers gave off a faint hum, then, an impossible sound, a single, resonant chime, as if some massive string had been plucked beneath the earth. She froze. Her chair creaked slightly as she turned toward the speakers, but they had gone silent again. Just one note, but her bones felt it, like it had passed through her blood. 30 minutes later, Mira stood outside the observatory, the rain now little more than mist. She held her phone tightly, a name already typed in, Jayden Holloway. She hadn't spoken to him in years, but back then, when he was still a respected signal analyst, he'd claimed that a similar harmonic had disrupted undersea cables between Greenland and Iceland. He was labeled a lunatic. She'd thought so too. But now, she pressed send. The phone rang. Once, twice, and then a voice crackled in the night. I was wondering when someone would call. In a dim Brooklyn apartment cluttered with audio decks, vintage oscilloscopes, and stacked notebooks scrawled with waveform diagrams, Jayden Holloway stared at his phone, a cigarette smoldering in his ashtray. Dr. Callen, he said into the receiver, trying not to sound rattled. Didn't expect you. You said something years ago, Mira replied. Her voice was sharper than he remembered, colder. You talked about a low-frequency pulse affecting global telecom systems. Something you said was buried in the crust, not space. Jayden let out a humorless chuckle. That was before the government made me a punchline. I think I just heard it. That silenced him. Jayden sat up straighter. Where? Indian Ocean, Trench Sector Z2 Alpha. Same frequency family as the one you reported. Same beat structure. Jayden's fingers drummed anxiously on his desk. That zone's been off limits for months. Ocean floor cables rerouted. Geological excuse, they said. Then this isn't natural, she said. There was a pause. When Jayden spoke again, his voice was quieter. I'm going to send you something, coordinates, files. You'll need to encrypt your end. NSA tagged my old data 6 times. You're still on their radar? Oh, sweetheart, he muttered. We both are now. Far across the Atlantic, in a black glass tower, overlooking London's Thames River, Agent Sloane Reeves swiped through surveillance footage of Mira's observatory. The feed was choppy. Old tech watching new minds. Reeve tapped a headset. Initiate Protocol Gray. Dr. Mira Callen just engaged Holloway. Full trace. We flag and shadow both. Non-lethal until confirmation. A voice crackled back. Confirmation of what, ma'am? Reeve turned to the screen, where a visualized map of tectonic signal points began to glow, forming a spiral deep beneath Earth's surface. that the signal is speaking again. That night, Mira couldn't sleep. She lay on her back, listening. Not to the rain this time, but to the absence of it. There was a vibration, soft like a whisper through the floorboards. She sat up. In the living room, her laptop screen flickered on. The spectrum analysis she'd been running displayed an error, or perhaps a message. The harmonic signal had evolved, and now it had a voice. A string of visual glyphs had appeared. Impossible. Symbols like language, rotating slowly on screen. She hit record. Her breath caught as the waveform below it pulsed again. We are not intruders. You are the echo. Let us in. The desert outside Winslow, Arizona, stretched like a forgotten canvas, red, flat, humming with heat. Jayden Holloway stood next to his rusted Jeep, the air tasting of static. He was exactly where his own data had told him to go 10 years ago. The point of first contact, the one no one had believed. Back then, he'd felt the pulse under his feet. Before he heard it, a tremor of consciousness like something had brushed past his thoughts. He never told anyone the full story, that the signal hadn't just played through machines, it had spoken to him, in fragments of light and thought. Now Mira's call had pulled him back. He reached into the glove box and pulled out a battered hard drive. Inside was the original audio fragment, one he had saved when the NSA tried to wipe his work. It wasn't just noise, it was a language of compression and resonance, encoded in geological pressure and time. As he connected it to his laptop, a strange sound filled the Jeep, a chord of layered tones, almost like a choir slowed to geological tempo. Then came a voice, not from the speakers, but inside his head. Return the echo to its origin, she will know the path. Thousands of miles away, in England, Mira stared at the glyphs now displayed across her projector wall. They rotated with mathematical precision. She fed them into her custom linguistics program. Nothing matched. No Sumerian, no Sanskrit, not even anything close to ancient Polynesian symbol codes. But then she noticed it. The pattern was not in the symbols themselves, it was in the space between them. As if the language wasn't visual, it was temporal. A sentence written in pauses, in breath, a speech made by the earth itself. At MI5 headquarters, Agent Sloan Reeve stood in a secured black chamber with mirrored walls, watching a classified brief replay from 12 years prior. Project Hollowfield. Voiceover accompanied the flickering footage of a remote Icelandic power station melting down after receiving an unknown frequency. This is Site Echo 9. Power spiking, systems not responding. We didn't transmit anything. Wait, oh God, it's not a response. It's a command. The footage cut. Reeve turned to her assistant. This is the same resonance we've just detected from Dr. Callen's observatory? Yes, ma'am. Matched down to the 10th decimal. And it spoke? Yes, it said. Let us in. Reeve narrowed her eyes. Then we don't just have a signal. We have a door. Back in Mira's observatory, her hands trembled. Her computer had compiled the glyphs into a waveform, which now translated into a visual location, a topographical map deep within the Greenland ice shelf. Jayden's voice buzzed in over her phone, breathless. Mira, you need to see this. The pulse has changed. It's calling out coordinates. I have them, she whispered. Greenland! A low rumble vibrated through her floor again, this time stronger. And outside, far in the distance beyond the trees, a light shimmered in the sky. Pale blue, silent and falling slowly like a snowflake of fire. The shimmer in the sky grew brighter as it descended, a quiet meteor trailing. No smoke, no flame, just an unbroken blue glow like submerged starlight. Mira stood barefoot on the dewy grass outside her observatory, eyes wide, heart hammering, and then it stopped. Just above the tree line, hovering with unnatural stillness, the object began to ripple, its edges blurring into something half-visible, like heat over stone. A soft tone vibrated the ground beneath her feet. A single harmonic, almost like a greeting. Suddenly it blinked out of sight. Mira turned to run back indoors, when she saw it. A figure stood in the clearing near the hedge. Tall, human in shape, but not quite right. Its skin shimmered like moonlit water, and its movements were smooth, soundless, as if it breathed through dimensions. A faint glow pulsed behind its ribs, like a heartbeat made of stars. It took a step forward. "Dr. Mira Callen," it said, not with a mouth, but inside her mind, voice wrapped in echoes. She gasped, backing away, instinctively grabbing the emergency flare gun on her table near the door. What are you?" The being tilted its head. The glow in its chest softened, and with that came a rush of emotional impressions. Not thoughts, not words, just feelings. Sorrow, urgency, a desperate plea. "I am Alex 3, it said, slowly forming the words aloud. This time, its voice delicate, metallic yet soft. "We listened for your kind. You spoke once. You forgot." Mira's throat tightened. "This signal, this resonance, you sent it?" "We amplified what was already here," Alex said. "The earth sings from its core. The song is no longer in harmony." Behind Mira, the lights in the observatory surged and died. Her backup generator kicked in with a cough. Alex looked up, almost sadly, as if technology was a crude imitation of something far more elegant. "There is a fracture forming," it said, stepping closer. "One your governments have felt but do not understand. If it breaks, your species ends." Mira swallowed. "Then why come to me?" "Because you remembered the sound. Far above Earth, aboard an orbital NSA satellite station codenamed Citadel, Agent Tyler Cross reviewed the anomaly footage from England's airspace. The object had no heat signature, no radar presence, only visual light. He tapped a control key, freezing the image of Alex standing in Mira's field, his jaw clenched. "Get me Sloan Reeve," he barked. "We have confirmed biological contact." Later that night, Alex sat cross-legged on the stone floor of Mira's observatory, studying her equipment, touching it like one might handle the relics of a forgotten church. "You are not alone," he said. "But the others do not come to help." Mira looked up. "Others?" Alex's glowing chest dimmed, like a sigh. "There are watchers above your world who feed on collapse. We came because your music was fading. A silence approaches that cannot be undone." Outside, the wind howled against the glass, and deep in the earth the signal pulsed again, louder this time and closer. Inside the dim observatory, the only illumination came from the soft internal glow of Alex 3 and the quiet flicker of Mira's monitors rebooting. The alien's presence had done something to the systems, not destroyed them, but altered them, tuned them, like strings brought back into harmonic balance. Mira stared at the being across from her, her scientific mind racing. Alex's biology, if one could call it that, seemed more synthetic than organic and yet not mechanical. Biosynthetic, interwoven with something that shimmered when exposed to sound. "You're built from resonance," she whispered. "Sound, vibration, frequency." Alex nodded once. "We are encoded in harmony. Our bodies remember the song of origin." Mira hesitated. "You said others are coming. Who are they?" Alex turned to the blackboard she'd scrawled with equations. With one delicate motion, he traced a spiral into the dust. A Fibonacci curve, incomplete. "In your words, they are called the silent architects. Long before your Earth breathed, they sewed structures into the fabric of gravity. They listen for dissonance. They intervene when entropy becomes advantageous. You're saying they created collapse? Or won it? They harvest it." Meanwhile, in a mobile command vehicle rumbling toward Mira's location, Agent Sloan Reeve scrolled through intercepted transmissions. One in particular made her pause. "Encrypted deep-sea cable ping. Trench Z2 Alpha. Repeat. Anomaly is not terrestrial. Something is waking beneath the mantle. Signal harmonics match early holofield data. This is not a false alarm." Sloan turned to her team. "Satellite visual in 10 minutes. Prep a tactical entry. We approach under civilian cover, but if that being is still present, we capture it." "Alive?" a tech asked. Sloan's voice was flat. "Preferably." Back in Arizona, Jayden Holloway pored over coordinates sent by Mira. Greenland, yes, but they lined up perfectly with something he'd theorized years ago. Ley lines of seismic echo patterns, points across Earth where sound moved faster, deeper. He wasn't sure what scared him more, that the aliens' signal used these ancient paths, or that something else might be awakening along them. He opened his backup hard drive. Inside were audio files from his first encounter, a decade ago. He'd never told anyone about the final one, the one that whispered his name. He put on the headphones. Static, then breath, then, Jayden. It remembers you. He recoiled. The message wasn't new, it had been recorded 10 years ago. Yet somehow, it referenced a conversation that hadn't happened yet. At the edge of Mira's forest, Alex 3 suddenly froze. "What is it?" she asked. "They're close," Alex said. "Those who wish to dissect what they cannot translate." Mira's heart dropped. "The NSA?" "No," he replied, standing, his form shifting subtly as light rippled across him. "The old governments, yes. But also those beyond your stars who command through imitation." Mira frowned. "Imitation of what?" Alex turned to her slowly. "Of gods." The cryosphere of Greenland stretched endlessly under the gray sky. Shattered light reflected off ancient ice, casting long blue shadows across the tundra. Mira gripped the side rail of the cargo skiff as it coasted toward the expedition site, an uncharted cavern revealed by satellite shifts just days prior. Beside her, Alex 3 stood unbothered by the biting cold. The closer they came, the brighter. His internal glow pulsed, as if something deep within the glacier resonated with his presence. "I'm getting interference," Mira said, tapping at her tablet. "Magnetic flux is distorting the readings." Jayden's voice crackled through the radio headset from the nearby support vehicle. "It's not interference, it's harmonics. The same ones we detected in Arizona, just stronger. You're near." The source. As they reached the edge of the fissure, Mira gasped. The ice was singing. Faintly, but undeniably, a low, continuous hum trembled through the frozen air. Not random. Patterned. The waveform matched one Alex had drawn for her weeks earlier. A galactic distress signal encoded in Earth's own geology. Alex stepped forward, gazing into the glacial pit. "This was once a gateway," he said, his voice hushed, reverent. "Buried when your planet forgot its first dreamers," Mira's voice shook. "Who built it?" Alex didn't answer at first. He knelt, placing his hand against the ice. Where he touched, it melted, not from heat, but from resonance. A glowing path began to carve itself downward, spiraling into the earth. We did. Far away, in Washington, D.C., Agent Tyler Cross watched a digital reconstruction of Alex's biostructure on a 3D display. Despite dozens of attempts, no weapon system could model a scenario in which the alien's form could be captured, let alone contained. "He's not using cloaking," the NSA biophysicist told Cross. "He's literally out of phase with our known spectrum at intervals. Half of him doesn't exist here, at least not all the time." Cross's expression hardened. "Which makes him either the perfect spy or the perfect weapon." The technician hesitated. "There's one more thing. The resonance signature. Alex projects? It matches the anomaly that destroyed Hollowfield Station 12 years ago." Cross leaned in. "You're saying he's the same species?" "No, sir. We think Alex might be the warning. The ones who caused Hollowfield, they're still coming." Back in Greenland, Mira and Alex descended into the spiral corridor etched through layers of ancient ice. Strange markings pulsed faintly. On the walls, glyphs that seemed to rearrange themselves the longer she looked. They stepped into a vast underground chamber. Floating stones, massive obelisks, hung weightlessly above a central dais, defying gravity. In the center, a crystalline structure hummed with rhythmic pulses of light, a heart still beating after eons of silence. Mira approached slowly, breath held. "What is this place?" she whispered. "A transmitter," Alex said. "But not one that sends messages, one that sends memory." He reached out and touched the crystal. In an instant, Mira's mind flooded with images. A planet torn open by gravitational storms, species screaming into voids, a star collapsing with billions watching, unable to escape. Then came stillness. Then Earth. She fell to her knees, gasping. "They're not just coming," she breathed. "They've been here before." Mira sat on the icy floor, hands trembling, heart racing. What she had seen inside the crystalline transmitter wasn't just a vision. It was a living archive, an echo of entire civilizations extinguished. The knowledge was overwhelming, yet terrifyingly incomplete. Alex 3 stood silent beside her. His bioluminescence dimmed. He knew what she had seen. He had seen it too, long ago. So many times the memory no longer hurt, only shaped him. "This isn't just a transmitter," Mira whispered, standing slowly. "It's a warning beacon, isn't it?" Alex inclined his head. The architects built these engines across thousands of systems. Memory preserved through resonance. But they were repurposed by the wrong minds. Mira looked up at the floating obelisks, now slowly rotating in orbit around the chamber's ceiling. Repurposed into what? "A lure," Alex said. "One that calls out to the devourers." Meanwhile, in Arizona, Daniel Reyes was preparing to leave for Greenland. The encrypted signal Mira had sent him was clear, but the real reason he was going was personal. He remembered the encounter vividly, 10 years ago, a glowing object falling from the night sky, followed by weeks of missing time. Afterward, nothing. In life had felt the same. The desert itself hummed differently. Now, for the first time, those feelings had a name: Alex. He zipped his duffel shut and looked at the old patch on his retired flight jacket, a triangle with an eye inside it. Once a conspiracy theory, now a reality. Back beneath the glacier, Mira and Alex examined the memory engine's core. The vibrations from the structure had begun to intensify, matching the frequency of the original alien signal received at Hollowfield. Station before it was destroyed. Suddenly, the chamber shuddered. A low, bone-deep pulse rippled through the ice, and the floating obelisks halted their rotation. From above, a long crack split open the spiral tunnel, as if something massive was descending, or waking up. "We've been found," Alex said. Mira paled. "By who?" Alex's face turned toward the shadows. "Not humans." In DC, Agent Cross stood before a secure video wall showing thermal imaging from the Greenland site. Shapes were moving beneath the ice, too geometric to be natural. The Beeport technician's voice was shaky. "Sir, the satellite just caught something. Emerging. It's not our technology. It's not anyone's." Cross tightened his jaw. "Deploy Black Echo team. Full containment protocol." "And if it's not containable?" Cross turned away. "Then we bury it with the glacier." Back in the ice cavern, something massive shifted within the walls. The glyphs on the chamber's edge began glowing red, flickering like a broken pulse. Mira gasped. "The signal, it's being hijacked." Alex touched the crystal again, trying to stabilize it. "They're overriding the memory." "Who?" she cried out. Alex looked at her, sorrow in his eyes. The ones who survived the first silence. The architects themselves. A deep rumble echoed through the chamber. Then a voice, not heard but felt, spoke inside Mira's mind. "We remember. Your world." The walls of the ancient cavern trembled as the voice echoed through Mira's mind. It wasn't sound. It was memory. Emotion encoded into thought, pressed into the core of her brain like an imprint. Images flashed through her vision. A planet overgrown with crystalline structures, vast towers humming with unnatural light. And then silence. Darkness. As if something had come and swallowed time itself. She stumbled backward from the crystal, her eyes wide. "They're alive," she gasped. "The architects. They didn't die out. They're waiting." Alex's glow dimmed, almost flickering. Worse, they adapted. What they couldn't control, they consumed. What they couldn't consume, they buried. "And Earth?" Mira asked. Alex turned slowly. "Earth was never hidden. It was preserved, like a relic in a museum, until now. Above ground, near the expedition base, Daniel Reyes arrived by helicopter, greeted by a wave of icy wind. He was ushered quickly into the command tent, where thermal scans lit up the walls. Jayden, coordinating operations, looked up. "You got here fast." Daniel nodded, eyes narrowed at the map. "What am I looking at?" Jayden pointed to a growing heat signature beneath the ice. "It's waking up. Whatever it is, it's beneath the memory engine, and it's not natural." A soldier stepped in, breath fogging the air. "We've got movement on the West Ridge. Unidentified figures. Not human. Not any known biological." Back underground, the cavern began to crack, not from force, but from time unraveling. The edges shimmered like heat waves, and shapes began to emerge. Tall, angular silhouettes with fluid motions, half-formed from light and ice. Architect echoes. Mira froze. "Are these them?" Alex stepped forward. "No. These are their shadows, projections, what remains of their minds trapped in the chamber's memory." One of the echo shapes extended an arm toward Mira. Her heart thundered in her chest. As it touched her, a flood of alien thoughts surged through her skull. A whisper, ancient and brittle. "We shaped the void. Now the void shapes you." Then it screamed, not aloud, but with psychic pain, and shattered into mist. Mira dropped to her knees. They're fractured, broken, like ghosts. Far away, at the NSA Deep Surveillance Array, Agent Cross watched the live feed go dead. "No response from the Greenland team," a technician stammered. "Satlink 7 just blacked out. We've lost visual. We've lost everything." Cross's face darkened. "Then it's begun." He turned to his assistant. "Assemble Directive Echelon. Code Black. Initiate Project Sunderfall." "Sir, that protocol could trigger a—" "I know what it could trigger," Cross snapped. "But if the architects are back, this planet is already compromised." Back inside the collapsing cavern, Alex's voice was calm but urgent. "They're pulling from the resonance, using Earth's memory as a mirror to rebuild their form." Mira's breath caught. "And if they succeed?" Alex's eyes dimmed. "Then your species becomes the first memory they overwrite." Suddenly the cavern ceiling split open, ice exploding. Upward as three angular forms of living architecture, half organic, half machine, rose from the depths. Their shapes warped in impossible ways, like geometry designed by a dream. The architect sentries had awakened. The ground shook violently as the three architect sentinels emerged from the depths of the glacier. Towering constructs of translucent, alloy and shifting geometries, they hovered a few feet above the icy floor, defying physics, their outlines vibrating with otherworldly resonance. Every movement they made seemed to bend the air around them, their limbs flexing like liquid crystal. Mira and Alex 3 stood frozen in place as the sentinels oriented toward them. "They're scanning us," Alex whispered, decoding intent. "Testing memory." Mira's breath was shallow. "What do we do?" "We stand very still and hope they see us as echoes, not threats." But Mira's pulse betrayed her. Her thoughts raced, uncontrolled. The images in her mind, her childhood, her father's disappearance, her first glimpse of the signal, all bled into the air, turning into flickering holograms that surrounded her. The sentinels moved in. Above the cavern, Daniel Reyes and a tactical team from the expedition approached the breach in the ice with caution. A blizzard had begun, unnaturally fast and violent, snow swirling horizontally. The temperature had dropped nearly 15 degrees in a matter of minutes. "Eyes open," Daniel shouted over the wind. "The terrain's unstable, and we're not alone out here." Jayden, bringing up the rear, glanced at the radar. "Multiple energy signatures beneath us, they're moving." Then, a deafening crack. The ice beneath one of the soldiers buckled, and then collapsed, sending him screaming into the abyss. Daniel rushed to the edge and peered into the blackness. He saw a flash of orange, then nothing. The silence that followed was even more terrifying than the scream. "They're down there," he said grimly. Inside the chamber, the sentinels ceased their movement, now standing in a perfect triangle around Mira. One of them emitted a deep, resonant tone, like a chord played on a cathedral organ. Alex's face turned. That's a query pulse. They're asking you to submit your consciousness. Mira's eyes widened. What? Your mind, your history. They want to understand your species through you. And what happens if they don't like what they... See? Alex looked at her, voice hollow. Then they overwrite it. A sudden flash. The air around Mira shimmered, and her vision went white. She stood in a new place, alone. A vast desert, a shattered sky, earth, but scorched, cracked, and empty. Above, fragments of the moon floated like broken bones. Her childhood home stood intact in the middle of the wasteland. A projection, a test. The front door creaked open. Inside sat her father, alive, just as he had vanished all those years ago. He looked up and smiled gently. "Mira," he said softly. "Did you finally hear the signal?" She stepped forward, voice cracking. "You're not real." "No," he agreed. "But I am what you remember most, and that memory is what they want to use." Suddenly, the house crumbled into glass shards, and Mira was back in the ice cavern, gasping. The sentinel stepped back. "They've chosen," Alex said. Mira looked at him, terrified. What did they see? Alex's gaze was unreadable. That your world is fragile, but still alive. For now. Far away, in a classified bunker beneath Washington, D.C., Agent Cross stood before a red-lit terminal. "Sir," a voice crackled through his earpiece. "We have authorization. If the next signal burst comes through, we're greenlit for orbital disruption." Cross's lips barely moved. Then God help them. The world above was coming apart, from Greenland's cracked tundras to the surveillance stations in Nevada, Cambridge, and Moscow. Energy readings were spiking. Satellites registered ripples in gravity itself, like the Earth had become a struck bell, ringing across space. The Architect Sentinels had not attacked. Not yet. They hovered in silent orbit above the newly exposed resonance core, a massive, circular structure embedded beneath the glacier. It pulsed faintly, like a heart, its light in rhythm with Mira's own breathing. "It's alive," she whispered. "It's not a machine," Alex said. "It's a decision engine." Mira's eyes narrowed. What?" "It evaluates. Futures. Probabilities. What happened to the architects? What happens to you? What becomes of everything? This structure is a mind, and it's just awakened after eons." Meanwhile, at the edge of the ice field, Daniel and his surviving team encountered an unexpected visitor. NSA agent Tyler Cross, accompanied by Black Ops soldiers and an automated drone swarm. Daniel's hand instinctively went to his sidearm. "Relax, Captain Reyes," Cross said coolly. "This is no longer a civilian operation. You're here under federal containment." "This is bigger than borders, Cross," Daniel snapped. "You can't just silence a global event." "You'd be surprised what we can silence." Jayden stepped between them. "Sir, whatever's down there is communicating, not attacking. We should—" "I didn't come to listen," Cross interrupted. "I came to shut it down." He pulled a small remote from his coat. "This is an orbital trigger. If the signal peaks again, we launch a kinetic rod strike on the Greenland site. No survivors, no history." Back below, Mira stood near the resonance core as it began to glow brighter. Symbols, like fractal snowflakes, appeared in the air around her, slowly rotating. They weren't just glyphs. They were memories, fragments of civilizations far older than Earth. "They've chosen you as a mirror," Alex whispered. "You are their interpreter now." "I'm not ready for this," she said, trembling. "No one ever is," Alex replied. "But your memories are intact. That's more than they had when they lost themselves." Suddenly, the chamber shook violently. The Architect Sentinels turned, not toward Mira, but upward. Outside, a beam of fire split the sky. The orbital weapon had been launched. Daniel watched in horror as the silver bolt from space screamed toward the ice below. Oh God, Cross did it. The bolt slammed into the glacier and everything exploded. Ice, fire, light. reality buckled. In that split second, time slowed. Mira, still linked to the resonance core, stood untouched. The energy from the architects formed a protective sphere around her, and her thoughts, now fully synchronized with the ancient network, reached outward. Stop. The pulse burst from her body like a supernova. The shockwave froze the falling debris, reversed the crater collapse, and stopped the orbital. Strike mid-path. The kinetic weapon dissolved in a blue arc of entropy, unraveled atom by atom. Above Earth, satellites shorted. The ISS lost orientation. In Arizona and London, astronomers wept as they watched the sky rewrite itself. Stars shifting, constellations redrawn as if the galaxy itself was responding. And then, silence. Perfect, cosmic silence. Cross stared at the blackened screen in disbelief. That's impossible. No, Jayden said. That's intelligent. Back in the cavern, Mira collapsed into Alex's arms. She whispered, barely audible. We're not the first world they've saved, or the first they've judged. Alex nodded. But you may be the first to change their mind.